105.9 Academy FM.
The sound of Folkestone.
Yeah, we've come through the building now, and now we're out in the, I suppose this would be the garage or the warehouse where the ambulances are kept, and we're just about to go and have a little look inside.
Right, well, this is one of our ambulances, one of our up-to-date ones. An ambulance costs approximately £140,000 to £160,000. They've moved on a lot from when I first started, where we had the two-tone air horns. They're fitted with satellite tracking. They're fitted with computer screens in the cab, which send us our calls from Maidstone or Lewis, or the Banstead control rooms where the emergency calls come in. And we carry quite a bit of expensive equipment on the back if you'd like to have a look.
We're now inside one of the most up-to-date ambulances, as David said, and it's a picture of many buttons and switches and cables and... I've just noticed that there's a cap flap strapped to one of the fronts of the cupboards. Could you just explain to us what that's for, please?
Yeah, the cap flap. Behind the cap flap is a waste disposal bin. It's for our clinical waste. And the best way that they found to be able to put clinical waste in there was to use a cap flap. So we take our gloves off or bloodied bandages or anything else, and we can put them through the cap flap into the bin, and then that stays safe there, and then later on when the bin's full up we can empty it out. The ambulances now, we have something called a make-ready depot. The nearest one for Canterbury is down at Thanet Ambulance Station, and what that means is that we have a company that makes our vehicles ready. So once a shift, the ambulance will go in, we drive in, hand over the keys, we get a new ambulance, and the new ambulance would have been cleaned inside and out, re-equipped, all the cupboards tagged, and that way we know that we've now got a nice fully equipped clean ambulance, because we don't have time now between calls to actually clean the ambulances ourselves. If there's some spillage of any bodily fluids, we obviously clean them up. We have clinical wipes for doing this sort of thing. But the good thing is that now the vehicles go to a make-ready depot, that they are checked regularly for any infection in the vehicle, so that we can keep the infection rates down. Right, starting from the back of the ambulance, we've got the LifePack 12, which is the machine I mentioned earlier, which is the machine that we would monitor somebody with. We would take their blood pressure, we would do an ECG, and we would do the pulse oximetry. Also in the ambulance we carry what we call our first response bag, which is a green bag which we take into every call, and this bag carries an oxygen cylinder, a bag and mask if we need to resuscitate anybody, carries what we call a tympanic, which is for taking your temperature, a blood glucose machine for doing your blood glucose, and various other airways we might need if we're going to have to resuscitate anybody. Also, we have an onboard suction unit which can be removed. This is for people who may have something nasty in their mouth, like blood or vomit, that we may have to remove to stop them choking on their airway. I've also got a drugs bag here, and in the drugs bag I carry a wide range of drugs for different uses, such as cardiac arrests, anaphylaxis if somebody's got an allergy to something. We also carry bags of fluids that we can put up as a drip. We also carry things like aspirin for dealing with heart attacks. We also carry drugs for dealing with diabetics. We've got drugs for dealing with pain relief for people who are having fits. So as you can see, it's quite a comprehensive bag. It's also got cannulas in, which are the needles if we need to insert a cannula into a vein to give drugs or fluids, and that's it basically for this bag. So as you can see, we carry quite a range of stuff.
As I can see, there's a lot jammed into this small van, and I often see ambulance cars driving around. What's the difference?
The ambulance cars are used because we can get a quicker response. The clinician on the cars will often be sent to the most serious calls to get there first, where they can update our emergency dispatch centre, and also they can start treatment. Basically, they do carry all the same equipment apart from a stretcher, obviously.
All right, so it already looks pretty compact in here, but to compact it down even more is quite impressive. When it comes to the different pieces of equipment and pull-outs and things like that, could you just explain what some of the different drawers and bits and pieces do? Because there's interesting numbers and markings on all of them. And I'd like to know what they all do.
Well, the different drawers, we carry things like we carry splints, we carry lifting aids, which are for us if we need to move and handle patients. But we've also got a side cupboard, and we've got even more bags in there with more airway equipment, different types of stretchers if we need to rescue people from different situations. For example, we've got something that we call a scoop stretcher. If somebody might have a spinal injury, we can lift them from the floor. We've got a special type of mattress which we can actually mould to the person's body. And also we carry special splints which are like a smaller version of the mattress that can fit around people's limbs. They're vacuum splints, and they're very clever. They're very soft. You mould them to the person's injury, and then you can suck all the air out and it becomes very rigid, and that way we can support somebody's injured limb without having to move it. In our secondary response bag we carry a selection of different ways to deal with the airway. As I said earlier, we can intubate people, whereas you put a plastic tube down somebody's trachea if you need to ventilate them. And we also carry in that bag different ways of dealing with somebody who's hemorrhaging. We carry the standard dressings, and we carry gauze, and we carry saline. We can clean up wounds. We also have a bag for it's called a hemorrhage pack, and they've got sort of high-tech types of dressings which were trialled in battles. And if we have severe trauma where somebody's bleeding quite badly, we can put these special dressings on which apply pressure, and they're very, very clever how they work.
Obviously, a big ambulance with flashing lights and bright colours tends to attract attention off the public. How do you deal with kids in the street and things like that when you're trying to tend to a person?
Well, obviously, if a lot of our calls, some people are attracted to what's going on, but sometimes you just have to say to people, there's nothing to see, and they have to go away, because, it's quite distressing for somebody if they're laying there injured, or, they've passed out. They're often very embarrassed, and the last thing they want is a big crowd. So we just ask people to go, or in some incidents, the police will deal with the crowd control.
Obviously, there's a lot of publicity on when you should call 999, but for some people, I imagine they feel they don't have much of a choice. What would you recommend to time wasters, and what's your view on people who waste time?
Well, people who we have the usual stories of people with cut fingers who phone ambulances. I mean, obviously, if you're suffering severe chest pain, or you think a relative is very unwell, they may have had a stroke, then it's to call us. There are a lot of adverts out there that will explain, the signs and symptoms of a heart attack, of a stroke. But if your relative has an existing condition, such as heart problems, we don't have a problem if you call us out, because we can always take them to hospital, and if it's nothing, then that's fine. But I would ask people to consider, if they're feeling generally unwell, to either call their own GP, the out-of-hours doctor's service, and of course there is your pharmacist. Go to your pharmacist. They're a very good mine of information, and very often your pharmacist can give you very good help and advice, which will save you sitting for hours up in an A&E department or wasting your doctor's time.
And finally, what would you recommend to someone who wanted to become a paramedic? Any hints or tips in how to go about it?
Personally, I think you should have good people skills. It's not all exciting stuff all the time like you see on Casualty. It's not all blood and trauma. Sometimes the work we do could be just picking somebody up off the floor. But and it's, as I say, it's not all trauma. A lot of our work is medical stuff. And personally, I find the medical stuff more interesting, because sometimes you have to be a detective to find out what's wrong with somebody. Somebody can present to you with a pain in the chest, or a pain in the abdomen, and it could be a number of things, and you might never know what it is unless you do a follow-up at the hospital, and even the hospitals sometimes are never sure, but very often it's more interesting to do medical stuff, and if you get it right, it's very satisfying. And it's very satisfying if at the end of the call the patients thank you, or you get a thank you letter. So I would say good people skills, and obviously it's not a job if you're squeamish or you get upset easily. Yeah, and also if you suffer from car sickness as well, because sometimes the ambulances have to move very quickly to get to calls, or from the call to the hospital. But if you are considering a career, you need to get a driving licence, and you'll need to get a category C1 on your licence, which means you can drive up to 7.5 tonnes. The ambulance service will put you on a driving course, an intense driving course, where you will learn to drive cars and ambulances.